Hi everyone, I'm Marnix. I'm a creative designer at Bite Me Games, and today I want to talk a bit more about game design documents. Probably one of the core pillars of video game pre-production. I've noticed, however, that a lot of indie developers either don't really know what they are or if they really need one, or why would they need one, because they're just small teams, whereas game design documents often give more of the thought of, okay, this is something that big teams only require. Also be sure to stick around, because at the end I'll also be sharing some more insight into a free template you can download that I've made to create your own video game design document. Of course, some of you may not even know what video game design documents are. So to first answer that question, I'm going to bring you a bit through the process of how developing a video game works. We have pre-production and we have production. So in production, this is where we think about when we hear actual development. Here is where we write code, here's where we create all of our 3D models, we create all of our art and all those things, and we really start making a game. Pre-production is the phase when we don't really know yet where we are going to go to with our game. What is our game going to be? And that's where, it's a chiller time at a video game company. So the developers, they're usually just trying around, tossing new ideas for mechanics that could be fun, or other programming related ideas for any possible future games. The design team, on the other hand, will mostly be busy with, okay, we want to make a new game, what's the setting gonna be like? Okay, what's the story gonna be like? What's the art style gonna be like? And they're gonna have lots and lots of ideas of, okay, we want to make a sci-fi shooter, okay, we want to make a Western style puzzle game. Anything could go, basically. And here is where they can just toss around ideas and try and figure out what really sticks. And once they have an idea that they know, okay, maybe, this Western puzzle game could have some potential, we'll give it a nice story, we have a nice mechanic that could work into it, I think this is something we would want to pursue. This is where a game design document comes in. And this is basically a document that's as long or as short as you want. We have one-page documents, we have 80-page documents, as we'll see later, but generally it's somewhere around 10 pages, where you write down, okay, what is the vision of our game? Okay, and then what is, for example, what is the high-level story going to be? Oh, you're a bounty hunter back in the 1800s, and you've been betrayed or something by your guild or anything. And we want to go over that. Okay, what are some cool mechanics that we can say? Well, we have this hand that has been chopped off, and it also works now as a multi-function thing and as a grappling hook or whatever. You're pretty free in that. And the concept is just, we write all of this down in a document. Okay, so who are our main characters? What's the storyline? What's going to be the core mechanics, and perhaps some other information about the game, maybe some concept art. Then you can bring this document to your publisher or to your management and be, okay, this is what we have created, go through it, give us some feedback, and if you like it, we can make it into an actual game. Now, of course, I've been talking about publishing and management, and usually if you're an indie developer, that's not really that applicable to you. So it's also important to have this kind of thing if you're a smaller team. So let's say maybe that, like us, okay, I am the creative designer, and Thomas and William, they are more programming, or William is like half and half. Okay, how do we share our idea of, okay, Thomas has a really cool idea. How do we share his idea with our vision? How do we combine the two in a way that really works? And how does he understand what is the story vision that we want to go to? So I would like to go maybe a bit back in time and look at some famous games of which the game design documents have been published. So think, for example, the original Diablo game. The game design document can now be found online. It's only 8 pages, but if we compare that original game design document written in 1994, and we then look at the games that were made, Diablo 1, 2 and 3, we can see that pretty much all of the DNA and the core vision that was written back in that game design document still beautifully carries over into the actual game, from the isometric viewpoint, the RPG elements. And it really goes to show the importance or impact from a game design document, that how what you write down actually becomes the game. Now, of course, this isn't always the default, and is also not really a requirement, But it's really nice to see that, okay, the designers had that same vision throughout all of these years that they've been working on the game, just from that original document that was most likely created by just a single person. I would like to spend a bit more time on one game-specific game design document, namely Doom, which was one of the first shooters, and whose game design document was written back in 1992 by the creative director over at id Software called Tom Hall. And he made this Doom game design document also known as the Doom Bible. What's different between this game design document and most of the ones that you can find online is that it's very long compared to the other ones. Diablo was 8 pages, Grand Theft Auto is also something like 10 pages, whereas the Doom Bible is 79 pages. And there are a few reasons for that, and I want to talk also about why you don't have to do that per se. So what made the Doom Bible maybe a bit different is, yes, it also shared that key vision, for example, of, okay, what is the kind of game we want? It had explained some of the storyline, it explained some of the mechanics, but it also went deeper. So for example, since it was a DOS game, it also explained how would we make a level editor, what is like the file extensions we're using, what are the tools we have to create in order to create the game, and stuff like that was also covered, which we don't really do nowadays. Maybe you can say that, okay, we want to make it in this engine, but usually you don't go much deeper than that technologically, because that's part of the developers and they need to think also deeper about that. But I think the most interesting part between, if we look at Doom, the finished game, and the Doom Bible, is how they don't really overlap that much anymore. So with Diablo, we can still clearly see some differences. However, if we compare the Doom Bible to Doom, we can see that in the original document, we had this plan of multiple characters you could all play as, and it was way more story driven. And then we look at the actual Doom game, and there's just one character, Doom Guy, and all you do is basically you kill demons, and you kill more demons and more demons. And a storyline was kind of tacked on, because back then, storyline also wasn't that important really. Half-Life hadn't been released yet, so most video games were just something, but didn't have much of a game like story inside of it. What I want to make my point with this is basically that you don't have to be too rigid on, okay, I create a game design document and I have to follow it to the T, or I have to use this for everything. No, you use it as a tool you can reference and you can go back to, and you can see, okay, what is the core vision we want to keep. So we can still see the vision between the original Doom game and the Doom game design document is still there. It's just the way we get to that vision and the storyline surrounding it that has changed. So I know what you're thinking by now. But Marnix, all those games you talked about earlier, they had huge development teams, they had funding and all these things, they had publishers, they had managers and all those things. I'm just an indie developer, maybe solo, maybe with like 2 or 3 friends. Why on earth would I need a game design document? It just seems like a waste of time when I could just be programming and working on the game itself. And I understand that, and I do really see that there's a lot of confusion about, okay, game design documents, you just use them for publishers, or they're just very lengthy text blocks that you need to keep updated and everything, and it's not fun. But I do think that there's a middle ground where everyone should have some kind of game design document, which I'll be helping you now as well with. And I want to cover some of the points as to why you should need one of these, or what are the advantages apart from just a publisher, or it has to be done by management. So probably the main reason is it lets you structure your thoughts. Right now you may be thinking, but I have a great memory. I've been working on my game, I know everything about it. Well, yes, but do you think that if you've been working on it for 9 months and you haven't worked on maybe a particular mechanic for maybe 2 months, and then suddenly you need to start working on, for example, a grappling hook system, do you think you can remember enough about, okay, this is how I was going to do it, and actually implement it in the way you had envisioned it? Odds are that no, you won't. Maybe you're very smart and you can, of course. I'm not saying that you won't, or that you will make mistakes, but it's just a safety net. It's not that much more effort to just write down back when you're fresh and you have all the ideas, to just create the concepts that you want and write them down. Writing them down also really helps in just thinking about, would this actually work? Because We have a lot of thoughts in our brain that may seem good in our brain, but once we actually start writing them down or typing them down, we try to explain them sort of to maybe ourselves or maybe to someone else reading the document. And this also serves as a way to see, oh, maybe this concept that I had thought about isn't actually going to work that well. And that's what we want. It's pre-production stage, so we can still very easily, without much lost time or effort, change to something, tweak it, make it sure that it works in the concept of our game. This structure is also very good that, okay, maybe you have been working for 7 months on your project. You now want to work on grappling hooks. How was I going to do it again? Well, let me just look at my game design document. Oh, it states here, it was going to work like that. Oh yeah, I remember now. Let me implement that now. It's a very low effort, but high gain system that you should use. The second point kind of builds upon the first one, but now instead of structuring it for yourself, you're structuring it for other people. So you have a great game idea, but any game you should always do a trial by fire and just get some feedback on. I understand that there's often a lot of fear in sharing your highly amazing game ideas early in the beginning, because what if my friend runs off with it? Well, you'd need better friends maybe. But it's also your friends or someone else you trust, they can provide you invaluable feedback into how should you change the game, what's going good about your game, what's going bad about your game. And talking about them or talking about the game to them is going to be much harder for them to understand what you're talking about compared to maybe giving them a document, like a game design document maybe even, that has some nice concept art, that has like a 2-sentence in the beginning that's like, okay, this is the game, this is what you're gonna do, this is the setting, and this is what makes it special. And then he can keep that in mind whenever he reads through the story or whenever he reads through the mechanics you've planned or through the timing and all those things. And he can much better give you way better feedback. So for example, also an advantage of writing things down is he can just go through it and see, okay, this part of your mechanic, just highlight it or whatever. I think this is something we should look into. Maybe it doesn't work as well. Or maybe, you know, the part where he randomly kills 4 kids in the storyline for no real explained reason. I think you should further look into that or you're gonna get backlash. Things that you personally may not be able to see that there may be something wrong with it because you've become so in love with your idea that you've kind of turned a blind eye to those things that make perfect sense to you but not to the rest of the world. Because in the end, what good is it when you make a game that you've poured your heart and soul into if the only person going to play it is your mom? And yeah, she'll tell you that it's a great game and you did your best, honey, but we all know what that really means, I think. Let's face it, I've been talking and we all say in the developers that, hey, we love this and we don't do it for the money, but we all love money in the end. In the end, all of us want to be able to fantasize about, hey, maybe I can quit my day job and just start working on video games full time. Of course, we need some money for that. Or maybe you just don't even want to quit your day job. Maybe you just do it for fun, but it's always nicer to have some kind of physical compensation, some kind of money or some kind of recognition to really prove that, hey, I made something that people are liking. And for that, to get that funding, you usually either have to go crowdfunding or you want to go with a publisher or you want to go and look for certain grants that give you money as well for your game development. And this is where a game design document is something that's very critical, because especially the last two, Kickstarter is maybe a bit less, but the last two, the publishers and grants, they will ask you for a game design document. They'll probably even ask you for a business plan or some kind of market research that, hey, why would we think that your game is going to be successful? And if you think about these things in your game design document and you look at some comparable games, okay, I want to price my game something like 20 euros or $20 because if I look at the rest of the games in the similar kind of genre, they all charge about that much, they have this much sales numbers, so this is what I expect if my game is successful to return from it. These are details that that a publisher really loves and really shows that you know what you're doing and you're not just, oh, you have an idea, you haven't checked it with anyone and you just want to make a game. No, this is what makes them decide that, hey, I want to partner with this guy and I want to start funding him to make a game for me. So, I've convinced you, yes, but how are you gonna start is now what you're probably thinking, because I just said a lot of things of, oh, you don't need to stick to a certain template. Oh, you can make it as detailed or as short as you want. And I do understand that. So that's why when I was originally researching all of this, I made my own game design document template, so to say, with the key points that I felt were more relatable for the games that I was making, or for most current games nowadays, basically. Because some of those old game design documents, they talk about things that are simply, they're not around anymore. Like, for example, what kind of processor and which kind of color graphics are we going to support? These things we don't care about anymore today. And you can download that template for free by going to the link in the description below, where you can find the accompanying blog post for this video. And you can also just read that to get some more in-depth information about what I said around here, as well as some links to the game design documents mentioned before. And by downloading it, you'll get a Word document that you can just fill out. It has all the key titles listed with some short explanations of, okay, this is what I'm expected to write here in as long or as short as I want. And also, since it's a Word document, you can just delete parts that are like, I don't really care about story, or I don't really have main characters. Just delete it, or if you want to add more things, just add a new title and it'll all work nicely. And that way you should be able to create a game design document in like 1 or 2 hours if you already have an idea. Just sit down and write for a bit and you have your result. And this game document, it will carry you throughout your development process. I promise you, you will be thankful, because you'll be able to look back at it and you can get feedback. You can look at how has everything been. So that brings me basically to the end of why I think you guys should all use game design documents. Please let me know, am I spouting a lot of things you disagree with? Do you have any more questions? Have you had experience with game design documents? Feel free to drop all of those things in the comments down below. I love to interact with you guys, see what you're thinking about, see how we can help you, also get more insight into development. And yeah, apart from that, if you're new here, please subscribe. We create weekly content surrounding indie game development, some tips, some tricks, as well as updating you on our own game development. If you haven't checked that out yet, we have our previous video was a devlog for our game Forge Industry, which we're working on, which also originally started as a 13-page game design document. When creating the game design document, I also realized that, hey, it's not that easy to create a game design document, so let me bundle my thoughts, create them into this video, and then share it with the rest of the world. So if you liked the video also, please don't forget, give it a like or just send a comment or anything. And apart from that, that's all for me for this week. I'll see you guys next week again. And until then, thanks for watching.